Welcome. Today we're looking at what changes when a workflow stops being immediate and starts happening in the background. The business goal may stay the same, but once work moves across time, correctness depends on events, queues, workers, retries, ordering, and observable evidence.
So the hard part is not the feature itself, but proving it still behaves correctly after the timing changes?
Exactly. The question is, what has to become explicit so the system still holds up under pressure? Now that we have framed the pressure, picture the usual move. A synchronous operation is pushed to a background worker so the user gets a faster response. That helps responsiveness, but it also removes the guarantee of immediate completion.
So the same method call can now be delayed, repeated, or reordered, even if the business story sounds unchanged.
Right. The design changed even if the intent did not, and that means the hidden assumptions have to be made visible before we trust the system. This sets up the lecture structure. An event names what happened, a queue stores work until it can be handled, a worker performs the work, evidence tells us whether behavior was actually correct, and design choice is where we protect the important invariant.
So the point is not just to know the terms, but to connect each one to proof.
Yes, the engineering habit here is to connect the abstraction to evidence, not just to implementation. An event is a record of something that already happened. That seems simple, but it matters because a past occurrence is not the same thing as current state. If we treat an event like a method call, we may assume the rest of the system immediately agrees.
What goes wrong if we make that assumption?
The code may look fine on the happy path while still producing duplicate work or stale decisions once pressure arrives. An event only helps if it is observable and tied to the invariant we care about. A queue is the buffer that lets work wait until a consumer is ready. That buffering is useful, but it also introduces risk because the producer can move on while the consumer is delayed, retried, or unavailable.
So a queue is part of the timing model, not just an implementation detail.
Exactly. Once the queue is in the path, delivery, ordering, and proof of handling become part of the design problem. The worker pulls from the queue and does something real, usually a side effect like shipping an order, cleaning a file, or sending a notification. This is where correctness becomes concrete.
Is the main risk that the worker just runs slowly?
Slowness is only part of it. The worker may run more than once, crash halfway through, or acknowledge completion too late, so delivery and execution cannot be treated as the same thing. Decoupling means the producer does not need to know who is consuming the event or whether that consumer is even online right now. That is a strength because it reduces direct dependency and improves responsiveness.
Then what is the cost of that separation?
The producer can no longer assume immediate completion. The real question becomes whether the system can still protect its invariant when the two sides are separated in time and ownership. An asynchronous boundary is where work continues later, often on another worker or event loop. That boundary is where hidden assumptions become dangerous because retries become possible, timing changes, and evidence matters much more.
Why does this boundary change the kind of proof we need?
Because the code is no longer one continuous flow, it has become a sequence of partially independent steps, so logs, IDs, and repeatable tests are what let us reconstruct what really happened. Now we can treat event handling as a state machine. The work begins in queued, gets delivered, enters processing, finishes as completed, and is only then acknowledged. If the worker crashes before completion, the item can move into retry pending and come back later.
What invariant is the state machine trying to protect?
That each external side effect should happen at most once, even if the queue delivers the same event more than once. The state model exists to defend that property. Let's make the failure concrete. Worker A ships order 42 and then crashes before it can acknowledge the message. The queue assumes delivery was not completed and redelivers the same event to worker B.
So the baseline can look correct until exactly that timing happens?
Yes, and then the system can ship the same order again or produce logs that no longer line up with the actual outcome. The evidence we want here is the delivery ID, worker logs, and the side effect trail. The pressure here is at least once delivery combined with an acknowledgement timeout and a worker restart. Each part is reasonable on its own, but together they expose a hidden assumption.
Let me guess. The assumption is that delivery count equals execution count?
Exactly. That assumption is false, and the result can be duplicate side effects, missing notifications, or a run that never reaches a clean final acknowledgement. The protected property is that retried events do not inflate side effects or hide lost work. To defend that property, we use idempotency keys, durable completion records, retry safe handlers, and reconciliation scans.
Isn't adding one of those mechanisms enough?
Not always. They each protect the invariant in a different way, and they also add storage and more complex handler logic. The right choice depends on the failure you are trying to contain. This lecture is really about evidence as much as architecture. A defensible claim needs delivery IDs, operation IDs, worker logs, and an audit trail that ties the action to the outcome.
One of the workers succeeds, but the acknowledgement is lost.
Then the evidence still needs to explain what happened. We design for delivery uncertainty and then prove the result with structured records, which is exactly what the integrity packet needs. There are several ways to respond, and each trades simplicity for control. A simple baseline is easiest to explain, but it often hides timing assumptions. A guarded state transition protects the invariant directly, but it requires careful state modeling.
So, which one should I choose first?
Choose the mechanism that matches the failure. For queues and retries, an idempotent design is often the strongest fit. For ordering sensitive workflows, explicit coordination may be the right defense. For practice, identify the invariant or progress property that matters most in your own system. Then, write one normal scenario that should succeed and one pressure scenario that could expose the failure.
What evidence do I need before I say the fix works?
Add operation IDs and entity IDs to the logs, capture before and after evidence if you apply a fix, and update the integrity packet with the assumption, validation, and remaining risk. This lecture connects directly to A3. You should be able to point to a real object, workflow, event, failure, or recovery mechanism in your own project and explain how it behaves under pressure.
So the assignment is not just to build it, but to defend it with evidence.
Exactly. The expected proof includes runnable commands, structured logs, before and after behavior, diagrams, failure reproduction, and an integrity packet explanation that defends the design choice.